process and then it posts.
Okay.
So let's see here. And I think I might turn my stuff off for a moment as well.
I'm gonna go get some water too.
Okay, sounds good.
So, Ms. Shore, have these third and fourth graders already been playing recorder?
So the fourth graders, I think actually last year, right when the quarantine started, they would have started playing. So I think they might have gotten just like maybe their first three notes. Um, but then we went home. So we're hoping in the spring to do this spring, hopefully to do some. But yeah, it's been a wild ride. So this is actually like just for these kiddos, a little bit delayed.
Yeah. Okay.
But
I was just curious.
but yes, we're working on something for this spring. Haven't quite figured it out yet.
I was gonna go try to steal one from my husband if they were, but yeah.
Oh, you could if you wanted to. I'm sure they would be so excited to see. But
Okay, let me, I will, it'll take me 30 seconds. Let me run up there and see if he can give me one. One second.
okay, sounds good. Miss Gian Gregorio, do you want to do the intro for this one?
Sure.
All right. Okay.
It's funny when you just go ask your
Yay!
husband, "Do you have a recorder I can steal?" And he's like,
Aw.
"Sure, here you go."
Oh,
Yeah.
are those the ones with the little buttons?
Yes.
Oh, nice.
Which he,
Okay.
and I mean, I don't really play recorder, but yeah, he switched to these and finds them much better for the kids because they actually have these little rubber keys on them.
Stoppers, yeah.
So I guess you don't have to worry about the kids being able to keep their fingers over the holes. Like it's
Right.
easier um, to do that. Though I guess, and it looks like the thumb. Oh, the thumb you actually press too. Yeah, I have never tried one of these, so this will be
Ooh,
exciting.
this will be fun.
Yeah.
That looks so cool.
I'm trying to remember. I can't actually read what the name is, but yeah, it makes them, I think, a little better for like any kids that have any kind of physical stuff going on. It's a little bit easier to use, and it just there's less like a lot of times when they're starting. I guess they roll their finger off the hole, and then it doesn't come out, and so this just makes
Makes
he's really glad they switched to these.
Oh yeah.
I can
I've
find out.
tried a few in the past.
Yeah.
Uh,
I'm gonna have to check those out. I've tried to make some of my own before, but good to
Oh,
know.
I can send you. I can find out from him what they are and send you the information if you
That
want.
would be great.
I think they got some kind of grant to get them for all the kids or some such thing.
Yeah,
They're
oh,
not
nice.
very expensive either, which is nice. Yeah.
good.
That is.
So I notice it's 9:30 now, so I would like to welcome everybody who is joining us. Um, Welcome to Ann Bobo. We're so happy to hear you. And everybody at Argenziano, please give her a silent cheer and a warm welcome. We are so excited to get started.
Great. Hi, everybody. Good morning. I hope that you get out to enjoy this sunny day a little bit today, once school's over, of course. Um, and yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's really fun to get to talk about the flute and music a little bit this morning with you. So, as you heard, my name is Ann Bobo. I am the flute player of the Storytime Quintet. And I am a professional flute player. It is what I do for a job. Um, it's a little bit different every day. It's really different right now that we're all home. But I play the flute and get paid to play the flute. I also get paid to teach the flute. So I teach some students privately um, at home or via Zoom right now. I also teach at the Boston Conservatory at Berkeley in Boston, and I also teach at the Rivers School Conservatory, which is another school out in Weston, Massachusetts. And voila, the flute, which I know you have been introduced to in your in seeing Peter and the Wolf, but I just wanted to give you a little more kind of in-depth introduction to it. Um, Flute is a member of the woodwind family, though most flutes are not made of wood anymore. Mine is made of silver. Oftentimes, you will see people playing gold flutes, even platinum, which is another super fancy metal. The flute, actually, when we take it out of the case, is in 3 pieces. So, try to do this without dropping anything. This is, sorry, gotta find places to put things down. This is the head joint, the top piece. This is really where the sound is created by blowing across the hole right here. If you have an empty soda bottle, especially a glass bottle works really well, you can practice doing this. So you can put the bottle right. I wish I had one. I don't have one. I've got to get one just to keep in my collection. But you can put it under your lip and blow across, aiming for the other side. And we get that sound out of the head joint. And then in order to be able to play more the notes than that, we put the head joint into the body, which is this main part that has all these keys on it, mostly on top, but there are some on the back as well. These we use our thumb on. We go back and forth between those 2 keys. And then we have the foot joint, which goes down here. And this one, we actually have 1, 2, 3, 4 different keys that we use our pinky on. So we go do all different things down there when we're playing the very lowest notes on the instrument. So those would be way down here. Let me see if I can get it so you can see my pinky. See how I go on and off those different keys makes the notes change down there on the very lowest notes of the instrument. We are the highest member of the woodwind family, so we play the highest notes. And you guys have heard a lot of those high notes in Peter and the Wolf when you hear the bird call of the bird in Peter and the Wolf. I imagine you guys remember hearing that one. So that is the flute. There's my little brief intro about it. Yeah, I'm looking forward to answering your questions.
Thank you so much. It's so exciting to hear you play and hear so much about the flute. And a lot of our questions for 3rd and 4th grade. So in 3rd grade in Somerville, you can start participating in El Sistema, which is kind of a private lesson program where you get to learn instruments of the orchestra. So we have a few questions related to that too. So Caleb wanted to know, how old should you be when you start playing the flute?
Excellent question, Caleb. So actually, I was about, I don't know if you're in 3rd or 4th grade, but I was about that age when I started playing. I started playing the summer before 4th grade. So I was really lucky to have, my parents are both musicians, and so they were able to sort of get me started with an instrument before we actually started in school. But lots of people just start right in school. I took the lessons in school just like everybody else. So if you guys have an interest in an instrument and you have that incredible program, that is so awesome. Really, really great. So yeah, so usually around, what is that, 8 or 9, I think, right? 3rd or 4th grade is about the time. Some people start younger. They do. The trouble is the flute's kind of long, right? It's kind of big. So the youngest I've seen is maybe 6, but they make these flutes that have curved head joints so that the flute is shorter. So when you're just little, you can actually reach everything. It's pretty unusual. Most people wait until 3rd or 4th grade.
And this is a question, just a follow-up from me, not necessarily from the students, but I know for me, when I start to learn a new instrument, it can be really challenging. So do you have any advice for anyone who's maybe thinking about starting an instrument or just starting an instrument?
Oh my gosh, yes, it totally can be challenging. And one of the hardest things with the flute is just making the sound. Just figuring out how to blow across that hole rather than blowing into something. That is a really tricky part of it. Um, yeah, so advice. Try not to give up. Keep trying. It takes a lot of practice. Just like anything that you're doing, you're not going to get better at it if you don't practice it. And here's the amazing thing. In the other class that we talked to this morning already, somebody asked me how long I've been playing the flute. I'm going to say it again. I've been playing the flute for like 40 years. 40 years, you guys. That's a really long time. And I still practice every day. Well, almost every day. I try to practice every day. Um, so my advice would just be try to find people who are helpful and patient and good. Find a good teacher. Trust your teachers to help you. If you have questions, ask. Don't be just frustrated at home, like not being able to figure something out. Go to your teacher and ask them for help, um, because somebody will be able to help you. And so there's no reason to just sort of be frustrated at home by it. But
That's great advice, especially in virtual learning where we are not always having access to each other, is to still reach out and ask for help when you need it.
yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. That is such great advice. Our next question is from Sonia, and she wants to know, do you perform anywhere and where do you usually perform? I know it might be
Oh,
your turn now.
yeah, thank you, Sonia. Yes, I perform in all sorts of places normally. This year, of course, has been super weird. Now I'm performing on Zoom. It's so weird and so different. But yes, normally I perform with, I'm the principal flute player, which means sort of like the lead flute player with the Pro Arte Chamber Orchestra, which is a chamber orchestra here right outside of Boston. We play most of the time in Newton, and also the Springfield Symphony, which is in Springfield, Massachusetts, about an hour and a half away. So that's a big orchestra. So I go out there and play there. I also have been so fortunate in my career to do a lot of playing with the Boston Pops. And actually, for about the last, gosh, 20 some odd years, I get to do the Boston Pops July 4th concert out at the Hatch Shell on the Esplanade. So if anybody's ever gone down there to watch that or watched it on TV, I'm one of the people playing the piccolo, which I can show you in a minute too, this little guy. Um, so that's super fun, and I've gotten to travel with that group a lot, and I've also done a fair amount of playing with the Boston Symphony, and then I also play with Boston Lyric Opera. There's a lot of music in Boston. We're super lucky to be in a city that has a lot of art and music happening, and I've played with most of the big groups in the city, and we cannot wait to be back to get to play again for everybody. It's been a long time.
It has, it has. I would actually love to hear a little bit about the piccolo too. I'm sure the students would love to hear that, but we have two more questions. So the last question actually ties really nicely into that. So before we get to that last question, Miss Greco's class wanted to know, what is your favorite song?
Oh my gosh. So I glanced ahead and saw this question. I thought, wow, that is seems like a simple question, right? Like everybody must have a favorite song. For me, it depends on if we're talking about a flute piece or if we're talking about a piece for the whole orchestra or if we're talking about pop music and rock music, right? Like, is it, I love Sarah Bareilles and I love Stevie Wonder is one of my favorites, and I love Bruno Mars and, those guys. But I don't know if that's what you're really asking, Greco. So I think you're really asking about the flute. And so I had to think about that one a little bit too. And I pulled out some music. I would say my favorite composer is Bach. I just love listening to Bach music all the time. But if I think about a flute piece that I think is like one of the most beautiful things, this is a piece, I won't play the whole thing, I'll just play a little bit of it for you, by a composer named Gluck. It's actually from an opera called Orpheus, which is about a Greek myth that you guys will learn about at some point. And it's called Dance of the Blessed Spirits. And it is so beautiful, and it can be played with flute and piano, or usually flute and orchestra. And I'll just play a tiny bit of it for you because I just think it's such a beautiful use of the instrument. And then it goes on and does some more really beautiful things. Oh, thank you. um,
That
it's
was beautiful.
it's a beautiful piece of music. Um, so I mean, I guess I just don't have one answer to that question because there's so many different types of songs.
That was so beautiful. Thank you. That's also very true. I was listening to Sarah Bareilles this morning when I was getting ready. So funny. I know Miss Shore loves Sarah Bareilles as well.
Oh, she's so awesome. She's so awesome.
So our last question, I know you showed us quickly another instrument, but Miss Greco's class also wanted to know, do you play any other instruments?
Yeah, excellent question. Also, just one other Sarah Bareilles thing. Do you know she went to Berkeley? She went to
I
school
did
there.
know that. Yeah.
Did
She
know
uh
that.
I know.
she came to Boston last year. Or 2 years pre-pandemic, and so I got to watch her perform, and she talked a lot about that.
Yeah, Miss
So,
Shore and I went to the same concert before we even knew each other.
oh, that's before you even knew each other.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. We got to see her a couple years ago now. You know her musical Waitress, if anybody knows that one. We actually got to see her doing the lead role in that show in New York. It was amazing. It was so
So
amazing.
cool.
That is
She's
amazing.
awesome. She's a total star. So yes, so do I play other instruments? So yes, I started out playing piano when I was a kid, which is how my dad was a piano teacher, though he was not my teacher because it's a little bit hard sometimes to have your parent be your teacher. That can be tricky. At least it was for me. But so I learned to read music from playing piano. So I did play piano pretty seriously all the way through high school, actually. Um, and that's a great thing to do because piano teaches you to read two different clefs. And with most instruments, you're going to have the piano accompany you, be the person who plays along with you. So if you can read the piano part, that's really helpful. So if anybody gets a chance to take piano lessons, I always say, go for it. Um, but the other instruments that I play, well, I had a couple things. So you guys, third and fourth graders, some of you may have gotten to start on recorder. So I was telling your lovely teachers that my husband is actually an elementary school music teacher who's teaching from home right now. So I just ran upstairs and I said, hey, can I steal a recorder for a second? So the fingerings on the recorder are actually really close to the fingerings on the flute when you start. So on the flute, you go B, A, G. Same thing on the recorder. I don't really play the recorder, you guys. So this might sound really bad. I don't know. We'll see. My husband's going to be like, what are you doing? Okay, but let's try. Probably one of the first things you'll learn to play on the recorder. And guess what? One of the first things you learn to play on the flute also. So even though our mouths are doing very different things, the fingers do the same thing. So that's kind of interesting. So the other instruments that I do play a lot, I showed you this one briefly. This is the piccolo. This is the auxiliary instrument to the flute, which means it's like an extra instrument that most flute players have to play. It's like a little mini version of the flute, basically. The fingers all do the same thing. They're just much closer together. You make the sound the same way, blowing across the top, but it plays much higher. So that's what I end up playing on the piccolo a lot of the time on July 4th. That's what we do with that one. Um, but I did pull out two other instruments to show you that. Well, let me do this one first. So this is the smaller, higher auxiliary instrument to the flute, the piccolo. Then there are actually two. There's actually three, but mostly two lower flutes also. This one, look at that guy. What? This is actually called the alto flute. And it plays a little bit lower than the regular flute. And you can see, remember I was talking about the curved head joint before to play if you were young. That one is a small curved head joint. This is a big curved head joint because if you don't have this curved head joint, you're holding the instrument way out here, which you can also do. And I have one like that, but this is just more comfortable. So that's why I use it. So this one makes a really cool sound. So it sounds like kind of like mysterious and foggy. I love this instrument. It's used a lot in contemporary music. So some of the playing I do is with a small modern music organization, and this is used a lot there. Also shows up in orchestral playing as well. Um, and then I know I'm keeping an eye on the clock, so cut me off if we need to, okay?
I think we have time. We could do one more.
Is that okay? All right.
Yeah, I'm so okay. I feel like this is so cool.
This last one is just silly. This last one is just silly. So, does everybody remember what character the flute is in Peter and the Wolf? Right? We know it's that. Sorry, I have to put that over there safely. It's that flighty bird. So the flute ends up being the bird a lot. So this fall, I actually did a performance with a group called Chameleon Arts, and we did a piece that was all about bird calls, and it was amazing. And we actually performed it outside because that's where we could do it safely, and it was about bird calls. So it was great. I though had to also play this, the ocarina, which I don't know if anybody knows what that is. I think I know there's a very famous um, video game that has ocarina in it. But anyway, we had to sound like, with these ocarinas, mourning doves, which is a kind of bird that probably you've all heard. You just maybe don't even know that you've heard it. But we had to go like this. So we had to play these bendy, weird notes. So I don't really play the ocarina, but I learned that much in order to be able to do that piece. But I have to say, it's kind of cool, and they're not very expensive. And this one, I think, is just made of plastic and sort of a fun thing to mess around with. And there are lots of YouTube tutorials and things like that if anybody's interested in that.
That is so cool.
It's so cool.
We'll definitely have to look that up to find the perform. Do you think that performance is online somewhere?
You know, I was think I don't think it stayed up because I think it was actually a paid event.
Okay.
But the piece is called Songbirds by Luther Adams. I'll send you a link to another performance of it.
Cool.
So you could hear it because it is really an incredible song, and it's called aleatoric, which means every time the piece is performed it's different. There's
Okay.
nothing, it's all it's a little improvisatory. So it's pretty cool.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, okay, we are 3 minutes over, so I know our
Sorry.
students have to get back to their time, but thank you so much. Hopefully everyone on your Zoom calls give her a big cheer and a big thank you for coming and answering questions and sharing your wonderful talents with the Argenziano School. So we're so grateful to have you here, and have a wonderful day, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Bye, everybody.